If you guys are up for it, I'm going to do something crazy with you today. And if it works, you're going to be sending me 2 pictures in a couple months. So I have to credit the 99U team for challenging me to come up with a talk that was both original and provided everybody with an actionable takeaway. But before we get started, can I share a story? 6 years ago, my roommate Brian and I quit our jobs to become entrepreneurs. We thought about the freedom that would be provided if we just threw ourselves into the unknown to think about the big idea. We quickly found out that not having a paycheck means you're broke. And little did we know that the same week we quit our jobs, our landlord was preparing a letter. It came in the mail, and we opened it up, and it said, "Dear Joe, your rent is now 25% higher." So here's our rent going up, here's our bank accounts going down, and we have a serious problem on our hands. Here's 2 broke entrepreneurs who can't pay the rent. We're backed against the wall, and we start to think about how we can make some extra money in a matter of days. So we're brainstorming in our living room, and we discover something, that coming weekend in San Francisco, all of the hotels are sold out. There's a design conference coming to the city, so big, there's no more places to stay. And we start to look around the living room, and we start to see things. Space. Over here, even back here. Look at all this extra space. What if we were to share this with a designer who needed a place to stay? So we got this crazy idea that we're going to blow up an airbed, rent it out to a designer, cook them breakfast in the morning, and by the end of the day, we had this concept called airbed and breakfast. So we took the next step. We made the website. I had to polish up on my CSS skills, and this is the very first version of Airbnb. Very simple website. We ended up hosting 3 amazing designers, Kat, Amol, and Michael. And what happened transcended money. Yeah, we saved the apartment. We made rent. We also made 3 friends. In fact, Amol, 2 years later, invited us to his wedding in India. That's how profound these 4 days were with our guests. And it inspired an idea. What if we made a website where other people could share their space as well? So we took the next step. And we knew that as designers, we were going to need some programming expertise. So we invited one of my former roommates, Nate, to join us as a co-founder. And suddenly we had a founding team. So we set off to build the next version of Airbnb. We launched, it failed. We launched the second time, that failed. We launched a third time in time for this. Barack Obama speaking at the DNC in 2008, 100,000 people going to Denver, and hotels are sold out. So we launch, and everything wonderful happened that you can possibly imagine. We got press from here to Amsterdam, and we're still just 3 guys working out of a living room. And then guess what happened next? Look at this. The Silicon Valley dream was happening before our very eyes. They call that stripper pole growth. As quickly as our growth went up, it came right back down. And we entered what I like to call the Midwest of analytics, where your growth is perfectly flat, sometimes it goes down, and it was here that we tried to raise money. We talked to 20 investors in Silicon Valley. 10 of them returned our email. 5 of them met us for coffee. 0 invested. So we kept going. We were so passionate about this idea. We continued with the next step, and we raised a different type of financing, something that we like to call the Visa round. And this wasn't Visa's corporate arm. of investment. We racked up $20,000 of credit card debt. We had a whole binder of credit cards. We just skipped from one to the other until they got maxed out. But it gave us some breathing room until we got into the Y Combinator program, a seed program in California. And when we got into it, the guy that runs it, named Paul Graham, gave us advice that I will never forget. He said, go meet the people, because up until this point, we had been wrapped up in this kind of mantra or dogma of thinking that if you have a problem, you have to solve it in a scalable way. And so that, by the way, is reflected in our Midwest analytics, trying to solve problems in a scalable way. So then Paul Graham comes along, and he says, go meet the people. It's okay to do things that don't scale. And at the time, most of our people were right here in New York City. We had 30 hosts. So we flew to New York, and we started to meet our early community one by one. We started to throw meetups to get to know our early adopters. And they actually gave us insights as to what was broken with our product. And we iterated it like crazy. And by the way, who knows the company Holsti? Who's familiar with Holsti? So the gentleman on the right here are the Radpavar brothers who started Holsti. And they were some of the very first hosts on Airbnb. And they rented out their extra bedroom to help fund the beginning of Holsti. So here we are meeting the people. We're getting feedback on what's working and what's not working about Airbnb. And something started to happen. We started to go from the Midwest of analytics to what I say is the Rocky Mountain of analytics. And you know what? We've never looked back. By doing things that didn't scale, propelled us to have stories like this. This is an email that we got in November 2009 from a host named Kendra right here in New York City. And to sum it up, she says, basically, we saved enough money to keep our apartment. Thank you, Airbnb, for helping us get through this difficult time in our lives. We're at a scale now where we're getting emails like this on a daily basis. So I love this quote from yesterday. Nothing extraordinary is achieved through ordinary means. I thought that was very profound, Scott. So I want to do something now because I want you to take out your piece of paper. Because the one thing that I learned from that period in my life in the early days of Airbnb is what to do when you have a great idea, but you get stuck. I learned how to take the next step. So everybody has their paper ready. If you don't have your paper, just show your hand. If you don't have a piece of paper, and we have some volunteers that will help get the paper out. Cool, you've got your piece of paper. What's your idea? You know what I mean? Mine was Airbnb. What's yours? What's that idea that you came to 99U to forward? What's that idea that when you're in the shower washing your hair, you can't stop thinking about it? Please write that down on the top line of your paper. What's that thing that you think about as you're falling asleep at night? Man, one day I'd love to, and fill in the blank. That idea that would give you goosebumps if you ever saw it born and to enter the world. What is that thing? That startup you want to start? The skill you want to introduce to the world? That idea you want to forward at your company? Please write that down. And this is really important that 100% of people write this down. This only works, this game only works if everybody has an idea. So please check with your neighbor. Help them out if they need some help. And if you're totally stuck, think about a talk you saw yesterday. Somebody that had some crazy idea, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, that kind of inspired me. Just write something down. If you don't have anything, make it up. That's what creativity is. So check with your neighbors. Everybody has to have something written down, an idea on the top of the piece of paper. Now, how does the idea go from what you just wrote down into reality? Who here likes to go to the movies? Okay, who's seen Star Wars? Wait, who hasn't seen Star Wars? Okay, we have to talk. So I found the original script from Star Wars. This is an image of the script. This is where movies start. They start in written form and sequence. So how do they get from this to a cinematic 4D experience? What's the bridge that the storytelling industry has been using for the last 85 years to get from the written sequence of words to a cinematic 4D experience? Storyboards. Storyboards, bringing words to life. Storyboards show you things that words can't. And they help bridge words to experience. So every day at Airbnb, we face the same challenge, right? There's experiences happening. People are checking into tree houses. People are cooking and sharing food with guests from around the world. And they're even housing each other after hurricanes. So how do we bridge from our script to these real-world experiences? We storyboard. And we storyboard like crazy. Last year, we embarked on an ambitious project to map the entire guest and host journey on Airbnb, and we did it through illustration. We looked at the key emotional moments of the journey, and we drew them, we visualized them. And what it's done for us, it's allowed our entire company to achieve a new level of empathy with our customers. These are all the storyboards back in the office. It's allowed us to align around a common vision. So I took this same language of storyboarding and I actually applied it to my team. This team of engineers, designers, producers, leaders. And we did an exercise around envisioning the best work of their life. And we storyboarded what that moment, that snapshot moment in 2013 looks like, where they realize we're doing the best work we've ever done. I'd like to show you some examples of that. So this is one of the engineers drawing what to him is that moment where he realizes he's doing his best work. And you can see his team is up here. It's about collaboration. It's about keeping the site up. This is another example of Nick. He's actually an illustrator. And for him, doing his best work means that he's got time to celebrate with his family. This is another engineer, Lenny. His best work shows a lot of graphs up and to the right. So, I want you to take your piece of paper. I've got mine here. I did this exercise too. Take a look at the idea that you wrote down. Now, I want you to lay the piece of paper down on your lap. And I want you to get comfortable. I want you to close your eyes. And when your eyes are closed and you're comfortable, I want you to take a deep breath. So imagine you've got the storyboard for 2013, and it's an incredible year for you as an entrepreneur, as a marketer, as a designer. Pull the pieces together. I want you to envision that snapshot moment where the idea that you wrote down enters the world. With your eyes closed, I want you to think about the place. Are you indoors or outdoors? Who's there with you? As your idea is entering the world, it's launching, who's there with you? What role are you playing? So see the scene in your head really clearly. Now open your eyes, look down, and draw it. This isn't about drawing skills. This is really about honing in on your idea. So in the scene, are you indoors or outdoors? What's your role? What time of year is it? Is it June? December? Who's in the scene with you? What's the temperature outside or inside? What coding language did you learn for the scene to happen? What time of day is it? Is it the morning? Is it dusk? What kind of leader are you in this scene? What level of dedication did you exhibit for this scene to even happen? By the way, make sure you put yourself in the scene. Really important. So as you're drawing, I'm going to walk through some examples. This is mine. My idea was air bed and breakfast. And here I've drawn the 3 air beds with the mint on the pillow. There's me at the door with the big welcome mat. My role in the scene is as a host. There's breakfast included. And then there's the moment where we're having breakfast with our guests. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. And there's a calendar showing when a rent check is due. So I know you can do this. Be creative. Surprise yourself. If you're feeling stuck, pull something out of the air. That's what creativity is, creating something from nothing. You know what's funny is those who consider themselves to be least creative actually end up with the most amazing storyboards. Surprise yourself. About 1 more minute. Here's another example. This is Zen, a designer at Airbnb. And she's illustrated that she's got people saying, oh, Zen, you've got great intuition, doing your best work. Zen, I just booked my first trip on Airbnb. She's got, wow, Airbnb is such great design. There's other people copying us around the world. That's how good her design was this year. You don't have to have all the details. If you're drawing a forest, draw a tree and put times 1,000. This is Andrew. He's a graphic designer at Airbnb. And for him, his scene is designing a gallery about the community stories from Airbnb and having a giant opening in San Francisco. This is Sean's. He wants the team to be so productive that we're producing things where lightning strikes twice. And I love Harry's. For Harry, his best work this year was thinking big enough to go to the moon. He even quotes JFK. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do other things not because they're easy, but because they are hard. So a few more seconds. Okay, time. Pencils down. So here's what we've done is we've written down an idea. We've imagined that moment when it's born into the world. But what's that last line for at the bottom of your storyboard? So this is Spike. Spike's an engineer at Airbnb. And after we did this exercise, he came up to me and said, Joe, I absolutely love this exercise. I want to show you my storyboard. And this is what it looks like. He said, if I'm doing my best work this year as an engineer, it means that technology conferences are going to want to invite me to share that with them. So he drew himself behind a podium, sharing his code in front of an audience of about 100 people. I said, Spike, this is awesome. What's the next step? And he goes, well, you know, I guess I could call the conference organizer. I said, great, let me know how it goes. 2 days later, Spike comes up to me at lunch and says, Joe, you're never going to believe this. They invited me to speak at the conference. And here is a picture of Spike 2 months later, behind a podium, talking about the technology he invented at Airbnb in front of an audience of about 100 people. So, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Spike. What is one thing you can do in the next 24 hours that forwards your frame? Please write that down on the bottom line. For Spike, it was making a phone call. Who can you call? Who can you email? What meeting can you schedule? Mine was to download a CSS tutorial so I could figure out how to make the first version of the Air Bed and Breakfast. So how did that go for us? Well, today around the world, there's millions and millions of guests and hosts sharing their culture, their space, their food with each other. So what I'd love from you is please share with me your 2 pictures.